This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 12th, 2026 meeting of the North Haven Board of Finance. We do have our meeting this evening where we will go over our regular reports, and then we will talk about the budget that we do know did not pass yesterday. For those who don't know, there was 3,437 votes cast. 2,059 were against the budget, and 1,378, were in favor of the budget. So it did not pass. That does represent approximately 20% of the overall vote in town, so that's certainly a positive. I think in prior years we've had in the high single digits in terms of our voter turnout. Before we get to the agenda, since I do see Stacy here, I'd like to make a motion that we adjust the agenda to move the tax collector suspense list up to number 2 right after the minutes so that we don't keep Stacy any longer than necessary. So I'd like a motion on that, please. Second. We have a first, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Why don't we cover the minutes for our April 15th meeting? If we can have a motion in a second, I just want to say a word about the minutes before we take a vote.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
We have a second?
Second.
All right, so for discussion. Nancy, I know you sent an email in regards to your vote at the last meeting. I did inquire with the town attorney on that, and I copied Mike Hallahan because he is the secretary for the board. I'll let you explain, obviously, in your own words, but I believe what you said was that there was some confusion about the vote, which was the third vote with respect to the entire town budget, which was coupled with the motion to move it to the budget town meeting. So, to be honest with you, before I sent it off to Jeff, my feeling was we can't change a vote, after it's already been recorded and the meeting's over. But I want to give you the floor to explain that, and if you'd like to explain your thoughts on that, then please go ahead.
Sure.
And by the way, Jeff concurred. I apologize.
Yep. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain this. So in the third resolution at our April 15th meeting, the resolution reads that a total budget for fiscal year 2026-27 in the amount of $146,459,338, town government $73 million, Board of Ed $73 million, I'm abbreviating this, be presented to the annual budget town meeting to be held Monday, May 11th. In my mind, that is actually 2 questions in one, and so I clarified the next day in an email addressed to both the chairman and CCing Tammy, who does the recording of the minutes, indicating that my 2 responses are no, that I don't agree with the total amount. However, I'm a firm believer in our town meeting form of government, so I do absolutely support the presentation of a budget. This is perfectly okay, to be presented at the annual budget town meeting in order to obtain information and responses from from the constituents of North Haven. And I think that's true of both the public hearing as well as the town meeting, but the town meeting is the one that is specifically specified in the resolution. So I offered 2 answers to 2 questions. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments on the minutes of the 15th? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Tammy, did you get that? 1? Okay, thank you. Stacy, would you like to come up to the microphone? Do you want to say a word or 2 about the suspense list? I don't think it's on, Stace. Yeah.
Slide it out and then turn it on.
Can you hear me? All right. So, yes, I did submit my annual suspense list. It's nothing extraordinary. It's by state statute. The tax collector is required each year to present a suspense list to the Board of Finance for their approval, and I have done so. And there's really nothing unique about it. It is, in my opinion, a fair and accurate representation.
All right, thank you, Stacy. And then for those in the audience, these are generally taxes that have yet to be collected for various reasons. Sometimes it's a death, sometimes it's a bankruptcy. So it's really a reduction in the AR for accounting purposes. It doesn't mean that the debt is being wiped out or forgiven in any way, but it is a procedure that we've done every year since we've been on the board.
Forever. The only thing I might add is that the only time that a tax was truly extinguished would be after the 15-year statute of limitations. And there were very few, if any, on the list this year because I cleaned it up over the last 17 years.
All right, are there any questions for Stacy on this before we move this?
I just have one quick question. So the budgeted amount for arrears taxes includes this list, or it does not?
Well, it would depend upon the year, but yes.
So
Each year has its,
This is not all the arrears, Nancy.
This
These are
is-
just the ones that we deem uncollectible from an accounting standpoint.
Yeah, no, I understand, but we have budgeted for $1.1 million in arrears. I'm asking if this list of uncollected taxes is included in this particular budgeted amount, in which case then we shouldn't expect to be able to yield 100% for this
I
year.
don't think that's what the budget reflects. The budget reflects the
No.
amount that we believe we're going to collect in the next ensuing year. The total amount passed due from the town is in excess probably of the number that's on the budget, because you don't assume you're going to collect all of it.
absolutely. And those numbers only represent by state statute the principal. So that actually is not including,
Oh,
um,
something new.
Right.
that is
Well,
on-
interest and liens is another line altogether, so this is.
interest and liens, exactly.
Right, this is-
This is the principal amount from each respective grand list year that I have gone through every existing grand list year, which I'm legally able to collect 15 years' worth. And I have created a list that I believe is representative of those items that meet the state statute requirements for our suspense list.
Bob, sorry, Nancy. Bob,
No,
did
no,
you have
go
a
ahead.
question? No. All right, can I have a motion to approve the suspense list, please?
Make a motion.
Second, please. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you, Stacy. Item number 2 is correspondence. We do not have any presented here with us. I do know that some did come into the Board of Finance mailbox today, but I don't think we had a chance to distribute them. Next, let's go over the regular business. Let's start with the town revenues.
Yeah, we're doing 2 months or 1 month?
Just 1 month.
1 month, right, I'm sorry.
Well, just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, at our last meeting, we said we were going to forego the March
I did.
reports.
You're right.
So we're just going to do 1 then this evening, or should we do 2?
Well, let's do 1. I have to admit, I forgot I said that. Yeah, we have April. Besides, we have year-to-date numbers anyways. My only comment on the revenue is that we did get in our ECS, at least half of it, $2,096,000. I'm sorry, we got all of it in.
All of it.
That's the second half, I apologize. We got in our telephone access line, actually, we got in $119,641, which is $36,640 in excess of the budget. Had another good month on short-term investment interest, $119,524. And while we did bring in $27,000 in town clerk fees, $75,000 in building fees, and $24,000 in fire fees, those 3 line items are still running behind.
If I could just make one more comment, again, not based upon the April revenue report, but the March revenue report. We actually received our MRSA, or Grants for Municipal Projects, disbursement from the state in March. And for those who don't know, we typically receive this infusion of money from the state in the second to last week of the fiscal year, meaning the third week of June. And this year we received it in March, so I think that's a pretty good indication that it's an election year for the governor. So I think that's great news that we have that and we can actually utilize that right away.
I have a question. On remaining revenue for current taxes, it's $928,000. And looks like the monthly run rate was $374. Is that number accurate?
I'm assuming it's accurate. I think if you're asking if we're going to collect the rest, that's probably a good question for Stacy and/or. Did you hear that question, Stace? We've got about $928,000 of the remaining levy from last year to collect. I think the question, we collected $375,000 this month, so I think the question is that normal? Do you expect to collect the balance of the $928,000?
Not in the month of June and May. Probably not. There will be a little bit left. I think we're on par for about 98.9% collection.
Well, we're at 99 now. I know you didn't know that, so I apologize. But of the 928, you think that we'll collect
What
most
did
of
I
it? You
say?
think
I'm
there might be a little
sorry.
shortfall. What's that?
99. Did I say something different? I'm sorry.
You said 98, but that's okay.
No,
But
sorry.
the question, I think, is of the 928, do you have any feel for what amount of that we would collect in the balance of this fiscal year?
I'm going to guess about half of that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Tim?
Go ahead, Mike.
A question. I believe that I believe that the budgeted amount in our revenue is at the 98.5 collection rate. So our figure of 121 million and change there represents the full 98.5% collection that we expect. So we could exceed that number, I mean, theoretically, but to be another $1 million short, Mrs. Zambrano just read my mind here with what I was going to mention here, or ask. Is that $1 million at this point in the year
Michael,
typical?
what's represented in your report is the 98.75%.
Right.
So
I
we
know
haven't,
that.
we haven't collected.
So beyond that, we still have another $1 million.
We need to be 100% just to get to 98.5 or 75.
Right.
We'd be at 100% what?
For that, if that percentage was 100%,
Yeah.
we would have collected 98.75%.
98.5, I know. Right, so to be another $1 million short, is this
Yeah.
typical, or for this point in the year? Or is it a little high?
Yeah, it is kind of where we run.
It's right where it normally is?
Because I think as of today, it's probably about 600,000 behind,
Oh, okay.
as of today.
All right, so that remaining amount could come in May and June. Okay.
Well,
Very good.
Yeah, it'll be
Michael,
close.
Rich, I can comment on this because we talked about this today, you and I. So, you give everyone here some additional perspective. So, if we had to guess on the revenue side, we're going to fall short of the projected revenue, unless May and June comes in very significantly. So, through April, let's say we're 2.1 million short. Through May, we're probably another 600,000. And let's say we have 1.6 million to make up. So the way this works, ladies and gentlemen, is as that is happening, sometimes we can't control the revenue. We have to control the expenses. So when you look at the expense numbers here, our goal is to continue to strive for meeting the revenue. If we don't get the revenue, because some of the department revenues are off for reasons that the town can't control, then we look on the expense side. So this is what Rich and I do every day here, okay? We look at the revenue with Ingrid, we look at the expenses, and our goal is to whatever shortfall is on the revenue at the end of the fiscal year, that's going to be offset by an underage of expenditures. And that's going to be our goal. So if you see the revenue that's not coming in, always remember, we, every day at Town Hall, look at the expenses and monitor the expenses.
All right, Mike, thank you. Other questions or comments on the revenue side? Hearing none, let's go to the expense side. I guess the comment I'll make when I look at the report is that year-to-date, we have expended about 83% of the budget. That's with $1 million encumbered. That's not, that's a little bit more than 1%. And a couple line items, as I've mentioned in the past, tend to be front-loaded. So we're a little ahead of budget, I would say, on the expense side. Questions, comments from the members? Mike?
Just my question is on page 6 of our central facilities maintenance and building, maintenance and repairs. The $32,000 encumbrance, what does that represent? I think last month, in March, it was at 19,000. Is that just how projects come on and off the board? That's does that represent a certain issue within town?
We've been having a lot of issues with our buildings. They are, we had a couple of boiler repairs, and we just haven't get the bills for.
Yeah, I
all
know
that
about the
stuff.
ramp and the
That's what
backside
it
of the-
represent. It's not one particular item, it's a lot of different items.
Right. But nothing new has come up since our last discussion on this, on this category.
Yes. If we have any other maintenance, that would be added to those encumbrances.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else on the expenses for the town side anyways?
And that maintenance includes labor costs as well, correct? The line item Mr. Hallahan was just asking about, the maintenance and repairs of town buildings, that includes the cost of labor, not just the materials, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I had a question on page 5 regarding the annual special audit. Should we expect any more bills associated with the auditing for this year? Or is that pretty much closed out?
Pretty much closed out, yes.
Okay, so the year-to-date expended of $81,000 is the total amount, correct?
Ingrid, the special audits, is that the state and the federal reports that come along with the regular? What's the special audit? It's budgeted at 25.
That's for single audit.
That's the single audit. So that's done. We did those, right?
Yes. As well as this encumbrance right here, it's HR audits as well.
Okay. Nancy, does that answer your question?
Yeah, so there's no more encumbrances, so I have to assume that that's pretty much it for the year then. Okay, thank you, that's very
It's
helpful.
also state mandate or something.
Anything else on the town side? All right, why don't we go to the Board of Ed? We did get the March reports in our package, but we were subsequently emailed the April reports. Why don't we talk about April unless any of the members have a specific question on the March numbers?
So first of all, I'd just like to thank Mr. Strickland for providing us with the April numbers. That's really very helpful. I think we had the March numbers, and so it was great to be able to get the most recent figures. Again, just from the 30,000-foot view, through the end of April, the Board of Education has spent approximately 82% of their allocated budget. Now that's 10/12ths of the year, so 10/12ths is about 83.3%, so pretty much right on target. So with just 2 months left in the fiscal year, the Board of Ed has about $12.5 million in available funds, and that includes an encumbrance of about $3.5 million. If we were to just carve out that encumbrance and just set it aside for the time being, because no doubt that encumbrance will be reflected in the May and June expenditures, then they are currently at 76.6% spent, with about $16 million available.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Members, anyone else have questions on the Board of Ed reports for this evening?
I do, but I don't think it can be answered here. On page 1 of the grant report, the total revenues are a negative 891, with expenses of 908. I just don't understand what those figures are, that's all. So, I mean, I'll speak to someone to try to figure that out. It is noticeable, though, that most of the grant money has not come in. But it's just, I guess that's the way this works this time of year. Got 2 more months. $2.7 million is what we expect. So, all right. It's whatever the schedule is from the state and the feds.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Sorry.
All right, I'll take a motion on the reports, please.
Make a motion.
We have a first, we have a second. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. All right, the budget is up next. Again, everyone in this room knows that, unfortunately, the budget did not pass yesterday. So we are going to discuss our next steps here, which will be to adjust the budget this evening. Hopefully, that would allow us to have another referendum, I think June 6th or June 9th? June 9th. So we do have a proposal to talk about. Just give me 1 second. All right, Mr. Fried is going to speak, please.
So to summarize yesterday, so approximately 60% of the people voted against the budget. So our task here tonight is to cut this budget. And the task tonight is to cut both the Board of Ed side and the town side. So the way this works, ladies and gentlemen, is all of the Board of Finance members will weigh in with their what we call declinations. There are some suggestions. I have met with the superintendent, the business manager, and also the chairman of the Board of Ed today to explain what could happen here tonight. And what you're going to see here is declinations shared with a proposal to reduce this mill rate to get back to another referendum, which will be preceded by a June 2nd budget hearing. Now, what we're seeing across the state is a lot of the referendum cities and towns, the budgets are failing. Guilford, as an example, had a referendum yesterday like we did. They failed for the second time. So our position here tonight will be to come up with the number that we think can be passed at the next referendum. So there may be some steep cuts here that you're going to be hearing about and seeing. We have to get this budget down. If it fails a second time, then we will have to borrow $13.5 million to keep the government going on July 1st, because the timing is such that we're not going to be able to have a third referendum before the fiscal year ends on June 30th. So what would happen is, just so those that don't know, if a referendum fails on the second referendum, there's no money coming into the town on July 1st. And that is where we have to borrow $13.5 million through what's called tax anticipation notes at an interest rate. These are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. So tonight you're going to see what you may think are steep cuts, but we've got to get this down so we can pass this next referendum, and we start the process all over again after this mill rate gets determined tonight. Thank you.
And although I didn't go over the math with Mike on the 13.5, that definitely doesn't represent a full year. That represents some portion of the year.
That represents 1 month.
1 month, that's what I
1
thought.
month.
Okay. So we have a proposal here that's been passed out to the board. It represents cuts on both the Board of Ed side and the town side. The numbers represent essentially the same increase on each side of the town and the Board of Ed, which amounts to a 4.5% increase. Just as a reminder, the increase in the budget that failed yesterday would have been 1.73 mils. Were the members to adopt what's in front of them, it would bring the increase in the mill rate down to 1.1 mils from 1.7 mils. There are a variety of cuts, but I will say that this, even with these cuts that are in front of us, this would preserve 2 fireman positions and 1 police officer position, both to start around January 1 of next year. The combined cuts on the town side, which is a combination of capital, which would be cut, and operating expenses, some related to the budget positions for police and fire that were in the budget, amount to $1,010,627. And on the Board of Ed side, the cuts would amount to $1,747,459. That would be a total cut across the entire town of $2,758,086. I know the members have had a chance to look this over. Maybe I'll pause here for a second, see if there's any reaction or any comments from our members. Just in the microphone, please, Bob.
I noticed the plan of conservation and development for public works has been eliminated.
Part of this budget and some of the identifiers that we felt we can cut out, the plan of conservation development is a plan that we have to do every 10 years. So this $150,000 that we took out has no effect other than to remove it and to defer the cost in future years. So you might say, what does that mean? What it means is that we're taking $150,000 out that's non-personnel related, that is part of a state mandate that we have to do the plan of conservation and development. So we're deferring the payment until either the second or third year. We'll have to pay it sooner or later. We decided to take that piece out this year.
All right, thank you, Mike.
So, since this seems to be a repeat of what we experienced back in April, I would just like to ask, where did this list of declinations come from? Question number one. And secondly, could Mr. Monaco or Mr. Frieda actually walk us through each and every one of these and the rationale behind these particular changes?
Let me answer the first question, Nancy, but that was a joint effort of myself, Mike, and Rich.
Okay.
And Rich, you might be better. Would you mind going through the items, Rich, please?
Well, obviously, if you look at the majority of the items reflect back on capital, both library, police cruisers, community service, and public works. which I think was just about 700 maybe. 800,000. The other was reducing of personnel in police and fire. The full-time positions that were there for fire were reduced to starting in January for the 2 positions. And 1 position on police was reduced to the same thing starting in January. Along with that, insurance changes, Social Security changes, pension, deferred income, those are all the lines you see below. You know, if you look at fire, EMT, uniform cleaning allowance, all the line items below where it says police, fire, insurance, employee pension, Social Security, all tied to the change in that personnel, those personnel lines. The reduction or the delay of the 2 fire and 1 policeman to January. Everything above that line, starting from library all the way down to the siding on Lindsley Street, are capital items. Public Works taking the biggest hit. Police having their cruisers cut in half. And
We
some
did
maintenance.
maintain 2 cruisers though, right, Rich?
They still have
Yeah.
2 cruisers. We're cutting the amount of cruisers they have in half.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Many of those suggestions are exactly the suggestions that I either came up with back in March or also came up with for this particular meeting. But it's worth pointing out that of the $1 million in reduction on the town side, it seems as though about a little under $800,000 of that is actually in capital, and only about $200,000 on the actual town operating expenses. Is that correct?
791 is in capital.
How much?
791.
791, okay, close enough. And the total reduction in Board of Education of $1.7 million seems a little on the steep side to me. I think that will be impactful on both the teachers and the students. So I would like to, unless anyone else has any other suggestions, I'd like to make a couple more suggestions for town expense reductions, just a couple of them, not an enormous amount, but much more importantly and much more impactfully, I would like to address the revenue side of the budget, because I think that's something that is not included in this list of declinations, and I think there's an opportunity to actually save about $800,000 on the revenue side, or actually increase our non-tax revenue by about $800,000, and I think that might be something that we could put back into the expenditure side. So if I could, unless anyone else has any other comments or suggestions.
Nancy, why don't we take your expense suggestions first, please?
Sure, happy to. So my first suggestion, and I raised this before, is the issue of the on page 26 of the budget, under the police department, personnel, part-time, new position, traffic camera review. And again, I'm not opposing the installation of the traffic cameras. However, I firmly believe that this particular program should have absolutely nothing to do with the budget. It has already been reduced once from $100,000 down to $50,000, but I think it should be absolutely zero, and it should be treated much like our sewer usage bill, meaning as revenue comes in associated with fines and such, that same money is utilized to either run the actual program or to actually supplement our general fund. So I think that
Nancy, if I may?
Please.
That's exactly what it is.
Well, then it should be zero.
No, it needs a bookmark. It has a bookmark, an equal number on the revenue side and the expense side. If the expense side is lower, the revenue side will be lower.
Then you're double dipping, right?
No, you're not.
We covered this at a higher dollar before.
I understand, but if it's in the budget, it is impacting the mill rate. If it's impacting the
No, it
mill
is
rate,
not.
then
It's not impacting mill rate at all.
is it in the budget?
It is not impacting the mill rate at all.
If it's in the
You have
budget,
the same number on both sides of the equation. You have a revenue and expense that are equal. They nullify each other.
If it is in the budget, then the taxpayers are providing $50,000
Rich.
in revenue. If in addition to that $50,000, we are also collecting revenue from fines and fees, then that is a double source of revenue. Is it not?
No, let's not argue. Please go on, Nancy.
Okay. My second recommendation, again, given what Ingrid has just said about the audit costs, if you turn to page 25 of the budget book, our total audit, I believe, can be reduced. Again, it was significantly smaller than what we even budgeted for this year. So I think that the increase is not, I can go to the exact number. I believe it was $123,000. And so not just the fixed asset audit, but the total audit costs, unless, again, you have a particular fee or contract with the auditors for next year.
Well, we do have a contract, and it goes up. But why
We
don't
have
you?
a contract, and as you brought it up last time, the cost is associated with software for fixed assets. The auditor doesn't do it, we do it in-house.
Right.
And that is the software cost for the fixed assets reports.
So we're
And that's
paying
what
for
we said
software?
last month.
So we're paying for the software, that's what that fixed
That is the
asset
software.
cost is?
That is the software.
I see. Again, there are at least 4 different parts to the annual internal audit. There's the contract itself, there's the single audit compliance, there's the special internal audit, and then there's the fixed asset listing. And if you look at what we spent in our last completed year, I think that there might be some opportunity for savings there, since the last completed year was $95,000, and we're proposing almost $122,000. That's a 21% increase. Over this year, 21%.
Most of that's $18,000 of that's the fixed asset listing, which we just discussed. The other increase is de minimis, and most of it is the fact that our annual ACFR, I always want to say CAFR because they changed the name on me, has an increase in it over each year.
And so that increase to $23,000 is just due to software.
No, it's two different things, Nancy. It's the fixed asset audit and the audit for the auditors.
They just got through saying that the fixed asset listing, the cost of that is the software. Did you not just say that, Rich?
My point is, you're saying it's went up certain dollars, and I repeat what we already know, which is that most of that's the software, right? The rest is that our audit contract goes up annually.
And we have to pay for that software every year?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying. I'm trying my best, folks. I'm really trying to save both the taxpayers without sacrificing services here. So I agree with many of the capital cuts. And if I could just turn to the revenue side of the budget, which again, just so people understand, if we can responsibly increase the sources of non-tax revenue without putting us in jeopardy of a revenue shortfall, then I think that we can preserve some of the budget. So my first recommendation is under short-term revenue and investments. I know it's already been increased once, but I'd like to recommend that we increase this from $1,250,000 up to $1.4 million. And I say that based upon the most recent revenue reports, in which we're at about $1.5 million with 2 months left in the year. My second recommendation is to increase the revenue from interest and liens from $600,000 to $750,000. Again, in both cases now, this is an increase in revenue of $150,000. Again, the year-to-date for interest and liens has been about $743,000. The telephone access line, as Mr. Donnie pointed out, we received quite a bit more than we budgeted for this year. So rather than increase it all the way up to what we've already received, I'd like to suggest increasing it from the budgeted amount of $83,000 up to $103,000. That's a $20,000 increase. Next, under some of our sources of town revenue, our cemeteries. I'd like to increase the revenue from $45,000 up to $52,500. That's an increase of just $7,500, and I say that based upon the year-to-date revenue of $47,325. My next recommendation is to increase the Registrar of Vital Statistics revenue from $40,000 to $55,000. Again, that's an increase of $15,000 because the year-to-date is a little bit over $49,000. And last but certainly not least is a suggestion that was made previously by Mr. Jerry Feinberg as well as others, and that is making use of what we have historically done, which is making use of our rainy day fund or our appropriated fund balance. And I'd recommend that we utilize $500,000. If the concern is the AAA bond rating, that ship has already sailed. So I think this is precisely the time that we should be utilizing that money. And hopefully that if we can agree on at least some of these revenue increases, that we can restore some of that money to the Board of Ed.
Nancy, I think I'd like to just talk about the one last item, and then I don't know if members of Rich or Ingrid want to talk about some of the other items, but, you know, we've as a board over the last couple of years have actually tried to get away from using fund balance because obviously it's a one-time shot of revenues, and you have to somehow then make that up next year. And then, you know, the bond rating obviously is potentially a consideration, but I can tell you, having doing this for a living and seeing lots of financial statements from governmental entities, that our reserves are low. We've been told that by the rating agencies, but I know they're low compared to the counties and the states and the towns that I see all across the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast every day in my own position at work. So I will say I'm not in favor of that. Look, those reserves that we have right now are part of what will get us through the 1 month if this budget doesn't pass. There's all kinds of other things that we could name that it might be needed for. Look, we've talked a lot about the medical for the Board of Ed, right? Medical costs are going up and up and up, right? At the end of the day, it's a town that's responsible for things like that, and we'd have to pay for it. We're lucky. I'm not aware of any big lawsuits against the town, but we can just look at the newspaper every day and see that, you know, towns get sued for different reasons all the time. So there's a whole lot of reasons that we should have strong reserve. And so I personally, not speaking for the board, aren't necessarily in favor of that. I think Mike would like to say something as well, though.
So I'd like to comment on the fund balance also, and then we can open it up for discussion with some of the other recommendations. So one of the other reasons, Tim summarized it very well, you never want to move forward in a volatile environment at municipal levels. There are 47,000 roughly municipalities across the country, and some of them have gone into Chapter 11. There were bailouts. One of the cities in Hartford was bailed out by the state, $40 million a couple years ago. But the utilization of fund balance not only suggests, not only implies, it is a fact that the auditors and the rating agencies will say that you're budgeting for a deficit, so you have to use your savings. We can't do that. Tim just mentioned, you know, we have the reserves have gone a little bit lower. So to keep going back to the fund balance, we've gotten away from this the last couple of years. I'm open for other suggestions here, but not the fund balance. It doesn't look good for the town of North Haven by utilizing fund balance and then demonstrating to the auditors, like I said, demonstrating to the rating agencies, and I have to deal with the rating agencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the one that deals with the rating agencies. You never want to have a rating agency or a auditor say you're budgeting for a deficit. It doesn't look good, and it's not good. So I'm not for that.
The rental for Mill Road School, it looks like it hasn't really gone up. Is there anything there that we could do?
Their lease does renew every year, so
But it's yeah, but it hasn't changed.
sometimes it's,
It's up this year,
I believe it does this
so
year, so
then
maybe
we
going
could
up a smidge.
potentially increase that line?
We reviewed the contracts in July.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you, because I just noticed it's been flat.
It might be indexed to something like the CPI or something. It only went up $4,000, I noticed, between 25 and 26, Diane.
Well, it's
So these type of contracts, these leases, the CPI that Tim is talking about, they're generally like 1.75, 1.9, whatever they may be, okay? So there's going to be a modest increase every year, but it's not going to be a big number that's going to jump out. It's a standard CPI index that is very common in municipal governments leasing, whether it's land or buildings, to properties or to prospective property owners that want to lease these properties. In this case, this Mill Road School, it was a town building years ago. We orchestrated this lease. They do all the they do all the upgrades. There's no cost to the town at all. That's the way we structured the lease. They do the maintenance, they improve it. They're improving a town building. We get the lease, we get the CPI index increase. They do all the work.
Tim, will we generate any income from the speed cameras or the school bus cameras?
Well, Rich was just sort of addressing that, Bob. Yes, we will, but the way the budget's been constructed, there's an offsetting expense to that.
Well, there's kind of two parts to it.
Yeah.
The town recovers the administrative costs of running the system. That's why it's in our budget. So police are responsible. They need a designated person that actually approves the ticket, shall we say. So we are allowed to bill whatever our cost is. And that's why the budget has a revenue and an expense side that nulls out. Any money beyond that that's generated by state statutes dictated for public improvement, roadways. One of the things we're going to focus on is sidewalks. But it's dictated, it's restricted funds at that point. Anything after the administrative cost is restricted funds.
Rich, Ingrid, on Nancy's suggestion for interest and liens, which we budgeted 6, she's suggesting 750. We got a large blight settlement last year. Is that in that line item or is it in miscellaneous?
I've cleaned up most of the blight, so a lot of that, you're not going to see those numbers grow anymore.
Yeah, because I remember we got a very large blight settlement last year.
I've been closing on 40,000, 60,000, 110,000.
Right.
I've been bringing them to conclusion.
So I'd just like to talk about what Rich just said. So a lot of times that some suggestions are given to us, they look at those suggestions, say that, well, this is the way over the last 12 months it's been, so if we look at this, it's running over versus what the budget is, then we should do that for next year. It doesn't always apply. And this blight situation is a perfect example. These are one-time revenue reconciliations. We're not going to get the 60,000, the 35,000 that Rich is saying. It's not going to be a recurring revenue in next year. So when we get suggestions about, well, it looks this way, it's over 12 months, and we project it next year, we can raise it. Well, many times we can't, because they're one-time revenue sources that are non-repeating.
Any of the members have any other questions or comments on the suggestions made by Nancy?
So if I could just comment on that one point, in terms of the interests and liens, in our last completed year, so not just this year, 10 months into the year, but our last completed year, we actually brought in $988,000. So when I look at historic data, I always look at the last completed year as well as expenditures or revenue brought in year to date. And perhaps the 988 was an aberrant year, but I think that given the money that we brought in this year, again, perhaps Mr. Monaco and Mr. Frieda know better than I do in terms of the trends and what's behind them, but I thought it was a reasonable recommendation.
Understood, but I
Expand on it, Tim, a little bit. Obviously, interest rates are moving down, and yes, we are collecting more interest than we budget. But at the same point, if you look at building fees, fire fees, town clerk fees, 500,000, 300,000, 400,000 below budget, those are balancing it. The extra revenue we end up getting in interest, luckily, is helping balance those things out. So if you're going to increase one, then you need to decrease the other ones, which is one of the things we did last month.
Yeah,
We
but
increased
we
interest,
certainly
but we
have had
reduced
many
building.
years of revenue shortfalls, that's for sure.
More than decreased building and fire fees and town clerk fees even more.
Yes.
The only time Stacy will generate and probably hit those numbers is when the interest rates go down. Interest rates go down, more people are refinancing, town clerk fees go up. Guess what else? Interest rates went down, I'm making less interest. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a well-balanced dance that is orchestrated. You know, it's very important. You know, you basically are voting on the expense side of the budget. We can control, Michael does it every day, and we meet continuously. We control our expenses. We can't control revenue. If it's not there, it's not there. We can't make the money. So you have to be a little bit more realistic on what you expect to receive.
I think that our predictions of both revenue and expenses have to be the best that we can generate. And I agree with you, you can't control revenue, but I think that you can use some information to better predict it. Along those same lines, I also noted the town miscellaneous receipts. Was last year, again, an aberrant year in which we brought in $520,000? And is there any wiggle room in which we could increase that for next year?
Same thing, it's one-time revenue. It could be a piece of equipment we sold. We just sold the engine that was at Northeast.
But that's this year. I mean, the last completed year.
Again, it's one-time revenue. I'm not expecting any windfall in that line.
Any other questions or comments? Michael?
Just first a question. In this fiscal year, it looks as though our budget at the end of the year, our income and expenses will be breaking even. Is that approximately correct?
Revenue is probably going to be short in the $1 million range. It could easily be there. So we're trying to curb expenses so that it nets out even.
Yeah. Now, last year, did we end up with a surplus of approximately $300,000?
Yeah, if you say, I don't remember the number from last year, but again, $300,000 on. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. That's nice.
And it was the same thing. If you look at last year's revenue, we made a good amount of money in interest and blights that I brought in, but we also fell way short on building and fire and town clerk fees. And it helped balance that revenue side of the equation.
Right. Well, the whole discussion about the fund balance, we used to have a policy where if we did have a surplus at the end of one year, in the fiscal year that was budgeted that would follow, which would be a year and a half after that, we would be able to utilize that fund balance.
I'll expand on what you're saying. What we used to do,
expenses.
What we used to do was Mr. Frieda wanted to maintain a specific percentage of fund balance, which is what we were doing, and whatever was extra, we were rolling back in, which is budgeting for a deficit. But realize our budget goes up every year. So adding that 300,000 probably still didn't keep us at the same percentage we were the previous year.
Yeah, no, right, but it could be used, in other words, we did use fund balance, but because we added a fund balance at the end of a given fiscal year, I don't think the rating agencies saw us saw it as
Oh, yeah, they did.
deficit
Yeah, they did.
budgeting.
They seen it that way.
Even though through good government, we ended up with a surplus at the end of many fiscal years.
So what's happening in municipal government, ladies and gentlemen, we used to have an 8% fund balance, and it was accepted by the rating agencies because of the economic development that they would say to us in these rating agency interviews. They liked the fact the way the government was run. But what was happening is, just like I said earlier, due to governmental defaults with cities and towns across the United States, the rating agencies want it to go to 15 to 18% in terms of the fund balance. The fund balance is the savings. So we're not going to be able to do that. We're trying to keep it at 8.3%. But as Rich said, when the expenses go up in the government, if you have a surplus at the end of the year, it gets gobbled up by the expenses increasing, so it doesn't demonstrably affect the fund balance to be incremental. So we're hovering around 8.3% right now. So, and coming back to the revenue, so we see, you've heard us say, that we're going to be falling short on revenue unless there's a windfall coming in. Why would we increase the revenue projections when we're just compounding the potential problem? Because as I said earlier, I'm going to repeat it again, we know when revenue falls short, we can control the expenses. And that is what happened last year. Our revenue fell short last year. We handled the expenses and slowed the spending down so that we balanced the budget. And that is the goal, ladies and gentlemen, not to artificially increase the revenue. This is how governments get into problems. They're tempted to raise revenue that may not be there. In North Haven's case, you just heard Rich say, he's been running the blight here. He sees, he's negotiating the settlements. They're one-timers. In other words, if a home had $65,000 in blight fees, it's not going to be $65,000 in blight fees again because there's settlements that include redoing the property. And that's what we're trying to guard against here. Not inflating revenue that probably is not going to happen.
If I could just ask a question about that. Our current fund balance is about $12 million, is that right?
Change, I think. It's about 8.3% of budget.
Right. So let's call it 12 million, just for the sake of argument. $500,000
11.7.
out of, let's say, 11.7 is just a hair over 4%. So as a fraction of our total rainy day fund, it is not an enormous amount of money. However, the ability to reduce the reduction to the Board of Ed budget from 1.7 million down to 1.2 million is really substantial. So I think that's the balance that we're facing here, is where can a relatively small amount of money as a fraction of our rainy day fund be best utilized. And in the past, we have utilized more than $1 million per year in rainy day funds. And I understand that Mr. Frieda has to face the heat from the bonding agencies, but we heard very clearly from the people of North Haven yesterday that the budget was not acceptable and that people are not accepting a fourth year in a row of substantial mill rate increases. So I think that we have to utilize all parts of the buffalo. We have to utilize reductions in expenditures, as well as really carefully watching those expenditures month to month. But I think we also have to look at the other side of the ledger and be looking at revenues as well. Did you want to say something?
Mike, as you were talking to people in town, did you As you were talking to people in town as they voted, did you get any information from the voters as to what their concerns were? Because we really don't know why it was turned down. We can guess, but we don't actually know. Like, did you get some feedback to people for you? Talk to you?
I received a lot of feedback. And people call me, they talk to me. I'm all over the town. Meet with people. People are calling me. I put my number out there. Some people call, some people don't want to call. But I'd rather not say what I heard because I don't want to embarrass anybody here. But there's been a strident response to what I heard. There's too much money in a certain area, and people aren't happy with it. That's what I'm going to say here. Whether or not I believe it or not, that's what I hear. So, and that's one of the reasons why this budget failed, to cut this budget. And unfortunately, when you cut budgets, there's things that go by the wayside. But we're here tonight to cut the budget, try to pass this budget in the next go-around, and hopefully be able to move forward. And if we don't, I'm at the point here, ladies and gentlemen, I said it earlier to someone else, I said, nothing phases me. We'll deal with it. And even if we have to borrow $13.5 million month after month until we pass this budget. This government has faced a lot of challenges, crisis situations down through the years. So that's how we look at it. We're going to do what we need to do based on the will of the people. In this case, they voted the budget down.
All right, thank you, Mike. Nancy, I know you were talking about the fund balance while I had to step up there for a second, but at the risk of repeating myself, I stand by what I said earlier. I understand your math, but I actually believe that we should not transfer fund balance in to the operating budget.
And how about the other suggestions that I made that I think total about $342,000? I can go through them again if you need.
Again, if you want to increase interest in some of those other items, then you need to decrease the items that are not hitting budget. Building fees, fire fees, town clerks. And the net result is no change. If you look at the budget right now, you're tracking about $1.6 million shy in the current budget on revenue.
You know,
Yet
Nancy,
you want to increase revenue.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rich.
Sure.
I actually talked about this with, I think, Bob before the meeting. You know, there was a consultant that was hired by the town of Hampton. There was an article about in the Register, it was a couple months ago. One of his comments was about over-budgeting revenues, and I've said it myself and other members have over the years. I mean, you know, it's an area that I want to be cautious in, and, you know, we questioned whether or not we're gonna get the $960,000 in taxes that or 930, I apologize, are still to be due. We heard Stacy say she thought we'd come up a little shy. We just heard Rich say he thinks we may be short in a couple other areas. My preference would be conservative and leave the revenues where they stand.
And just one last point, ladies and gentlemen. We've said it 3 times tonight. We're probably not going to come in with our revenue numbers. It's going to be a shortfall in revenue. We're going to make it up with the expenses. Why would we increase the revenues for next year? We haven't made it the last couple of years. It makes no sense to do it. I understand the questions, I really do. I understand the suggestions. But we're in this every day here. We see things, okay? We know things, like the blight thing that Rich was talking about. So I guess I'll leave you with this. Last couple of years, we fell short on revenue. We balanced the budgets through the underage of expenses. Why would we continue to try to raise revenues?
I think it's been a lot more than just the last few years that we've had revenue shortfalls. I'm going to say it's the last at least 9 years that we've had revenue shortfalls. And that's in part due to inaccurate revenue forecasting, such as fire fees, as an example. I think we had great hope when the fire chief first introduced this plan that he was going to be bringing in $300,000 a year, and that would cover not only the cost of the second deputy chief, but it would cover, many other costs as well. And we continued to have great faith that that was going to pay off. We also had great faith that once we got the certification to be able to control ambulance dispatch in the area, that we would be bringing in tons of money as a result of being able to direct the ambulance dispatch, and that just has not panned out. So I do appreciate that some of those numbers have had to be reduced, but I don't know that that necessarily prevents us from increasing other numbers, such as cemeteries, registrar of vital statistics, and telephone access line.
Well, look, I'll make one final comment. I mean, I think that sort of proves the point, to be honest with you. Look, last year we missed our taxes by $487,000. We missed town clerk fees by $294,000, building fees $708,000, fire fees $311,000. Were we higher in some other categories? Yes. Interest and liens, we are higher, $390,000, for instance. But at the end of the day, as Mike just said, we were short on revenues, unfortunately. And we did talk about this, sorry. We did talk about this, but we held the line expenses in, and that's how we're able to manage it. And that's one thing you can do. You can manage your expenses. You can't, as I call it, you can't push revenues. You can't force them in the door. It's hard to do that. All right, having said all that, I'm prepared to, go ahead, Michael.
A lot of times when we have to reduce the budget because of a circumstance like this, a lot of times the evaluation of the reductions are often done through the perspective of fairness. Now, each of us might have determined what fairness is in a different way. Most voters I am projecting here, might want us to aim for an equal level of sacrifice between educational cuts and non-educational reductions. This proposal before us at the moment, from that perspective, is not even. On the town side, the reductions are approximately $1 million. And to the school system, it represents a $1.7 million cut. Now, some say that the reductions can be different, the amounts can differ, because the original percentage of increases were not the same. But the funding requests and the requirements are based on different criteria, different circumstances. The Board of Education funding, the amount of their requested increase is meant, amongst other things, to solve an over $3 million deficiency in medical, dental, and workman's comp. Medical and dental insurance and workman's comp. Meanwhile, on the town side, that shortfall in medical and dental insurance and workman's comp is only about $1.5 million, or the requested increase there is $1.5 million. So when non-discretionary requirements, and insurance and workman's comp, that's non-discretionary, when those requirements are siphoning a lot of the increase from otherwise a department's mission and purpose, such as instruction, such as teaching. Significant reductions in the overall amount can cause very severe repercussions, very severe consequences. Now, there's no doubt that after the budget did not pass, that these reductions, that major reductions are required. But I would like to state my opinion is that $1.7 million is too severe. And, you know, we've, on this board here tonight, we've explored the idea of using the surplus, not the surplus, I'm sorry, of using the unappropriated fund balance, which may represent some past year's surpluses. And Mr. Monaco is correct that there are some numbers in our revenue budget that are falling short, while others are well ahead. But that overall, the revenue maybe should not be touched. So then the question comes up, how much should this budget be reduced? How much should the mill rate be reduced in order to pass at the next referendum? And that's a very hard and subjective evaluation. But I would like to make a motion to increase the mill rate by 1/10 of a mil in order to reduce the amount of declination in the Board of Education's budget from 1.7 million approximately to 1.3 million. So I would like to restore $400,000 back to the Board of Education budget by increasing the mill rate by 1/10 of 1 mil. That's my motion.
Second.
All right. We have a motion, we have a second on the table. Comments from the members, please.
I guess I'm confused, Michael, like, why are we going to try to increase the mill rate again when people told us definitely yesterday that they weren't happy with the direction it was going in?
Well, there were
I'm not
significant.
against the Board of Ed, but, you know, unfortunately, cuts have to be made somewhere.
Right. 1.3 million is still quite a cut. There were a lot of people who voted for this budget. And the question is, how many minds do we have to change? And whether reducing the budget by 0.6 mils or 0.5 mils will make the difference in passage or not in this second round. So that's what it comes down to.
Where's that money going to come from? We've just had a very long discussion about there's no extra revenue.
Right. It would come from the taxpayers in that additional 1/10 mil.
I think that's a lot to ask for.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a lot to ask for, too.
Okay. I just had to put it out there. Because 1.7, when the Board of Ed said that without that extra $500,000 at the end, they had zero money, they had about $1,000 in discretionary expenses that they could pay or allocate for. That meant to me that they had a lot of priorities that had to be budgeted with the amount that was included in their original request. And so, you know, by cutting $1.7 million, we're going beyond that first $500,000, we're going $1.2 million into what they believe might be programming and labor and certified positions and other items that they deem are essential.
I don't think we can forget, Mike, that the Board of Ed was higher in the first place. In fact, then we went up another $700,000. So, you know, their increase was higher in the first place. So obviously, you're right. When you look at the numbers now, they certainly are.
Look at that medical and dental.
We've talked about the medical and dental numerous times. I guess what I would say is, at this juncture, they're both, the town side and the Board of Ed side is getting a 4.53% increase. So it's equal, obviously. It's not that the town is getting more, because this is a process, just not this moment in time. We've had the ups and now the downs. At the end of the day, it would be 4.53% for both sides. Any other, go ahead, Bob. Well, I was going to say, any other comments before we vote on the motion? All right. All those in favor of the motion by Mr. Hallahan, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please respond by saying nay. Nay. The motion does not pass.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mike.
I'd just like to ask, are there any other suggestions from Board of Finance members for either reductions on the expenditure side or increases on the revenue side that could influence the bottom line figure?
We don't really see it right now, other than artificially inflating the revenues. I also want to explain one thing, okay, with we just voted on. I don't think we can pass a 1.2 mill rate increase. 3 or 4 weeks ago, we added $1 million to the budget. People came out in droves when they heard that. So to bring money back into the budget now, I think it's going to be the same outcome. There's a very good chance it would fail. So we tried to pick a number, 1.1 mil, that we could pass, so we don't have to borrow the 13.5 million every month. And for those that remember, early on in this process, I'm being very candid here, I made statements at the department head meetings, I made statements at Board of Finance meetings and Board of Selectmen meetings that I didn't think anything more than 0.33 mils would pass. I said that many times. Here we are at 1.1. To bring it up to 1.2, I don't think it's going to pass at 1.2. So we're landing at 1.1 mils. We carved out almost $2.8 million here. Hopefully the residents see that there's been an attempt to cut this budget so we can pass this budget and move forward. And this is the harsh, stark reality. We're not the only municipality going through this. And my colleagues in Guilford, 2 referendums already failing.
Actually, Nancy, Mike reminded me of something. You asked earlier, you know, where did this declination page come from? And I said, well, I work with Mike and Rich on it. So, you know, when we first started talking about it, my goal was to get it down to under 1 mil, because I thought that's where it needed to be. It's not where it landed. Fortunately, we were able to preserve at least the 3 positions for fire and police, which we got a lot of support for. And look, that's not to blame, but we ended up at 1.1 because that's where it was the best we could do at this time. So it's 0.1, I get it. It's not actually where I wanted to land either, but hopefully it's supportable by the town. So I think that's where I am on that.
Again, just so people understand, I know that the chairman explained this the last time, but the cost of 1 mil at this point, following the last 2 property value revaluations, the cost of 1 mil is about $4.2 million. It wasn't that long ago that the cost of 1 mil, as a result of the grand list and property values, was somewhere in the range of 3 million, something like that. So it really is a significant challenge to be able to reduce the budget by 1 mil, because we really have to track down that much money, either on the expenditure side or some combination of expenditures and revenues. So some people might be thinking, oh, well, back in 2018, we had the exact same mill rate. No, because of the revaluations, the cost of 1 mil, or the value of 1 mil, is significantly higher. So I think that's worth pointing out.
Any final comments from the members on the budget? Michael?
No, I just wanted to say that in order to avoid further cuts in the future to education, I will be voting in the affirmative on this budget.
So will I, Mike.
And a quick question, the various changes to medical insurance, social security, deferred income plan, and DC plan police, I assume that those were all prescribed numbers from some outside source?
No. Richie figured those out.
It's hard to hear sometimes what they're
Oh,
saying.
sorry. The last four numbers.
It's all related to reducing police and fire from full year to January starts.
Ah, I see. So it's all really related to that. Gotcha. Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, I think that's it with the comments on the members. So I'd like to offer the following resolution, please. Resolved that the Board of Finance recommends a town government budget for fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $72,241,367. If I could have a second, please. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please respond by saying nay.
Still thinking. I'm going to be honest, this is really not an easy vote for me to cast because 78% of the reduction on the town side is capital, whereas 100% of the reduction on the Board of Ed side is obviously going to be very impactful. So again, in the interest of being able to put together a budget and put it to a vote, which is what everyone's asking for, I'm going to vote yes.
All right, thank you. All right, another resolution I'd like to offer, please. Resolve that the Board of Finance recommends a Board of Education budget for fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $71,597,836. If I could have a second, please. Second. All right, we have a second. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. All those in
Aye.
favor, please say nay. I said 886, that's what didn't I?
086.
No, it's not 086.
Oh, no, sorry, the last number is 086.
All right,
My
it
mistake.
should be 886. I have to admit, my 3s and 8s sometimes look the same, but just to repeat, 71,597,886. All right, the motion passes. Finally, that a total budget for fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $143,839,253 with a town government of $72,241,369.7, and a Board of Education of $71,597,886 be presented to the special budget town meeting to be held here in this auditorium on Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. All right, that concludes the formal business of tonight's meeting. It is a moment for public comment. If anyone would like to comment, please feel free to come to the podium. Please state your name and your address. And I see you, Nancy. Sorry, Sally. Please just try and keep your comments to 3 to 5 minutes. We do have not as many people as you have, but we still have a good audience. Sally?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Sally Boemi, 5 Blossom Drive. I sent you my suggestions earlier today. You know what I was looking for. I would have supported a 1.2 million, a 1.2 mil increase as opposed to 1.1. It's just a half a mil reduction, but after the last reval, that half mil is a lot of savings, is a lot of money for the taxpayers. I think the main message, well, first I want to thank all of the 3,467 people who voted. It's one of our largest turnouts in quite some time. 900 more people voted in 2026 at the referendum than in 2025, which was 2,576. So there was a clear message, I think, that people wanted to control some spending. Yes, of course, everyone, I never heard anyone say they wanted a zero tax increase. So that was not under any consideration. But the $500,000, I thought, would have been appropriate, as you know, from what I sent you earlier today. I just want to put my 2 cents in on the fund balance. During the 12 years I served on the Board of Selectmen, and even on the years I served on the Board of Finance, there was always a fund balance transfer line item. And during many of those 12 years on the Board of Selectmen, that line was sometimes 1.7 million, 1.4 million. It was a lot of money. And that meant keeping the mill rate down or having a no mill rate increase, which is very politically popular. Tonight, Mr. Fried has said it's a bad idea to have a fund balance transfer. Was it a bad idea all those years before?
It's a bad idea in today's environment. Things change in municipal government. I've said it 15 times. Auditors and rating agencies frown on it. We were able to get by it in past years. We can't get by it. And I'll say it now for the 4th time tonight. And the 4th time is this. It implies, it suggests, and it indicates that you're budgeting for a deficit. It's a no-no in government in today's environment with what's happening across 47,000 municipalities. I don't know how many times I have to explain this.
You know, I understand the explanation, but a lot of towns in our area of our size are using fund balance transfers because of the challenges of this budget season. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, and you put your 2 cents in, and that's fine. I just wanted to say that I think that if you look at the numbers of people who voted yes, in 2025 it was 1,661. Only 1,370 voted yes this year. I think the Board of Ed lost a lot of support with education advocates. That's very clear because 900 more people voted, but 300 people voted against this budget. And of course, we all know that the Board of Ed was the crux of the issue in this budget. And to me, there were several reasons for that, from what I've heard from people and from what I've heard and watched. First, the manner in which the ID program, the Integrated Day program, was abolished. A lot of people were very upset by that being done suddenly with no notice, and that people were limited in their opportunity to discuss it at public comment. I think that hurt a lot of education support in town. Also, I believe that the outrageous initial request presented at the budget workshop for the Board of Ed of 11.1% hurt them as well. And I partially blame the Republicans on the Board of Finance for that outrageous 11%, because last year they requested the highest by far increase of $4.5 million, and this board accepted it and did not subtract one dime from it and said, oh, what a great presentation, we support this budget. And there were still other workshops to be heard. So I think you spoiled them a little bit, but I think that initial 11% increase angered a lot of people in town. And third, I think their refusal when we all found out in early March, Brown & Brown, our medical consultant, said that the Board of Ed's medical anticipated costs have gone down 1.4 million. They refused to reduce their 9.95% budget request increase. In fact, as late as April 13th, the budget public hearing, they were still demanding education advocate and DTC member, one after another, please put that 9.5% budget in the referendum. Well, it's obvious that that was not necessary, because the budget that was rejected yesterday gave them a 7% increase, and we know from Mr. Stirk's budget presentation that that was enough to cover all the hiring that they wanted, all the programs. It was saving middle school sports, it was saving global languages, it was saving the creative learning programs, all the things that they threatened would be abolished if they did not get 9.95. But that at 7%, they were able to get all that. I think that hurt their standing in the community very much. and it is reflected in the numbers that we saw yesterday. So I'm a little disappointed. This reduction in Board of Ed of 1.7 million is much higher than the one I recommended to the chair. But if the Board of Ed wants to blame anyone for what happened to them in this budget season, look in the mirror. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Kim Cohen, Tokenique Drive. This is not something that would be a suggestion for this year's budget, but I'm very curious at it. Feels like it's always an all or nothing. So everybody has to say it's the yes and no of yes to everything and no to nothing. Is there a way, or has it ever been suggested of breaking down more of a pay per service for some things that are always budgeted for, such as like trash collection, another way of looking at how we collect trash, how we pay for that? Leaf collection, if there's a way of having, certain size buckets where you're paying for the size that you can fill in order to reduce how much is collected, or just other suggestions in pay per service ways to take that out of a budget and then pay for it, or
I
like
can
we do
answer
with
part
sewer.
of that, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Reithra. I can answer part of that, and Michael probably want to weigh in, but I mean, it's been considered by the board over the years. There's been times where when budgets haven't passed, and we've considered, for instance, canceling the leaf service, or as you suggested, going for a pay, or even just simply having people bag to reduce the labor cost to pick up the leaves. Universally, that was turned down. I'm sure Mike will tell you he got all kinds of response to that particular item. The trash service is another one. I mean, it's a service that we run here in town. At the end of the day, I can't give you the economics, but if we don't do the trash service and we reduce your mill rate, you're going to be paying, obviously, for trash service on the other end. Whether or not that's a net savings, I couldn't tell you, but there's obviously an offset to both those suggestions.
Right.
Historically here in North Haven, we have a mill rate that everything is built into. There are other cities and towns, as Tim mentioned, that the sanitation pickup is the pay for service. And I think that knowing what happened with leaf collection years ago, by going to a pay for service, you divide a community even more. And what happened when we tried to take leaf collection out years ago, 4,000 people emailed me, called me, or I was out with the people. They don't want to give it up. And when you ask them to pay for it, it further exacerbates something that's happening really all over, a divisiveness. That's why we never went down this route, to do a pay for service. We saw it even with the Board of Eds in other cities and towns. All of a sudden, budgets got cut. There was a pay for service. People had to pay for sports, and then people were saying, "But wait a minute, I'm paying a mill rate. I'm paying a mill rate in aggregate taxes for everything. Why are you disentangling that and asking me to pay separately for something that I'm not going to use or I have to use?" So I don't see us ever doing that here in North Haven. I know it's come up before with a couple of people, but it will divide a community even more than what we saw in this past budget.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, we'll come to you, sir. Why don't we go here first, and then you, and then Mary. Yeah, please, come on up, sir.
Good evening. It's good to see you all. My name is Len Fasano, 7 Sycamore Lane, North Haven. I think it's been said, but I don't think it's been said deep enough, that when you have 3,000 people showing up for a referendum on a budget on the hottest day of the year, on Memorial Week, and 60% plus say no, that is a message. That is a mandate to say we can't keep going in this direction. We have to change. And I would suggest the change can't be made that quick here tonight. There has to be structural change. The structural change has got to start with the Board of Education, maybe the town, but primarily the Board of Education that's really driving these cost increases. I can't grapple my head around the fact that in the United States, we have less kids in our country than we did 15, 20 years ago. We have less kids in the state of Connecticut than we did 15 and 20 years ago. We have less kids in North Haven than we did 15 or 20 years ago. But our education budget is growing faster than the rate of inflation. I can't tell you I know the answer because I haven't dived into those numbers. When we talked about discretionary financing for Board of Education, there was an 8% increase at a very high rate of a couple salaries on the administrative side. We should question why 8% increase. $16,000, $20,000 a year increase, to me, is a significant increase. That's discretionary. That's not mandatory. That's not meeting the challenges put forth by the state of Connecticut. We had 6 positions. Why? The argument was we're being proactive, from what I read. Well, maybe now not is the time to be proactive. But we need to look at this issue. I believe in education across this state, we are administrative heavy, and teachers need more. That's where I come from. We need to look at the administrative costs. We have a lot of superintendents. We have a lot of secondary level superintendents. We have huge administrative costs. We have to ask why. When we start programs, whether it's education or town, what is the measurement of the programs? What I have found, particularly in my experience at the Capitol, when a program gets in the budget, it is there forever. We just say it's there, we'll fund it again, we'll give it a 1% inflationary increase. What is the measurement of the program? What has it done? How many people are in it? Can we combine that with other programs? That's a deep dive. Now, the argument is that's hard to do. I would agree. But let me put this for you. Before 2017, the state of Connecticut, for eons, years, had deficits, surpluses, deficit, surpluses. We raised taxes, then we funded to those raised taxes, then we had a bad year, and then we had a deficit, then we raised taxes. In 2017, Republicans and Democrats got together for 9 months and said, we're going to stop this. We're going to look at these programs. We are going to set up a fiscal management system that's going to stop this. And that was the bipartisan budget of 2017. As we sit here today, from 2017 to today, Connecticut has never had a deficit. You all have never had your personal income taxes go up. You never had to be told, we are not funding education, or we're not going to give you the municipal aid, because we made sure by this bipartisan budget that we stick to standards. And we recreated a new structural efficiency for the state of Connecticut. And what we've done is when we got to a certain point of our surplus, we paid legacy debt, pension debt that we owed because we didn't pay it for a couple of years. That is a significant structural change. I challenge this finance board to put together a group to do just that for next year. Put together a group to look at why are these costs going up? There could be good reasons. Why do we have so many programs? There could be good reasons. Why are we teaching 7 languages instead of maybe 3? Could be good reasons. But we should hear them, decipher them, and make a decision on them. Because the rate we're going, look, you guys say, okay, 1.7 is not good. Maybe they'll do 1.1. Well, what about 1.2? That's just throwing numbers out there to see what would pass. How is that setting up the future for this town? How is that looking at the generation by coming up that's saying, we have a plan and we're giving you the baton because old guys like me are leaving. We're going to give you the baton and you're going to carry this message through and keep our town the way it should be. Hamden lost its luster because the property taxes got insane and people left in droves. And they are in economic trouble because they didn't have the wherewithal to think 10 years, 10 years in advance of how they're going to control it. I suggest this board has the statutory authority, the municipal authority to take on that venture. Is it going to be hard work? Absolutely. And what we found, Republicans and Democrats, sitting together in a room, when we got through the first part and really got down to the nitty-gritty, we had more in common than we thought we ever did. We believed in the same core functions of government, education, and public safety. But those conversations can't take place in these types of settings. They got to take place when you're able to sit down face to face and really get through the numbers. But I think if we don't do it, we're losing valuable time, and I'm afraid what's going to happen over time with the town. I say this from my heart because this is a great town. Volunteerism that you all put in is terrific, and we need to preserve it. So I throw that out as my suggestion, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pisano.
Dan O'Brien, 3 Belmont Road. First of all, I was one of the people who asked for us to have a vote. So I'd like to thank you, even since the vote went down. I think it was the appropriate thing to put forth something like a maintenance budget, maintaining current services and current employment levels and opportunities for seniors, students, safety in the public community, and so forth. I think that was the appropriate thing to do. I just wanted to remind people of a few facts. Obviously, a 1.7 million cut on the Board of Education side is going to cut lots of jobs and maybe even whole programs. And I have been one of the people to say that repeatedly, and I didn't hear anyone who said, yes, and that's good. A lot of people came to the microphone over a series of meetings and they said, no, there won't really be cuts. And we just heard it again. We had 9 people who retired. They were offered the opportunity to do so, 8 teachers and a non-certified staff member who retired, and they will not be replaced. That's part of what came down from the 9% figure. We took software and software licensing out of the budget and put it on grant. There's probably other elements too, and there are better people to ask than me. But there was money that came out of the budget demonstrably, things that were in the budget, paid for by budget dollars, that came out to get down to the 7 figure. And now, if it's going to go down to the 4, you are going to lose opportunities, things that kids won't be able to put on their transcripts. You will have larger class sizes. And as I've already said once, with the kind of cuts that 1.7 million probably means, you're probably going to have empty classrooms. We'll be paying to maybe cool and definitely in the cold months heat rooms that we built that won't have staff to teach in them, which seems like a poor use of our resources. Last point I want to make about making use of our resources was that the board boldly and bravely asked for 5 special education positions, 5 special education and special services positions, because we're mandated to already provide those services. And bringing them in-house, while initially it looks like we're adding, is going to cost us less money than it will anyways because they're mandated services. There's no getting around it. There's no cutting the cost of the expenditure of providing services for students who have a legal right to them. So I just think that we're still hearing this is not me saying this. I don't think I heard anybody on the board say this. But we're still hearing people make claims of bad faith. And I think that's very unhealthy for us, and I don't think it's reflected in the documents. I don't think it's been reflected in the public comments of people who have come before the town to say, this is my expertise and this is what I do, and now we're going to face a significant cut, and that means cuts of programs and opportunities and jobs. And I think we have to think really deeply, because now we're partly in a hole. We're going to have to think about how deep into a hole we're going to go. I personally don't think it's a great idea to spend the town's savings if we're at a reasonable rate, quite honestly. I'm conservative in that way. And I don't think it's a good idea at all that we should cut programs that we're going to not be able to compete. One last bit of facts that I just want to remind, besides Blue Ribbon School, Our DIRG, which I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, has 24 districts like us. We're one of 24. And we are fourth from the bottom in terms of PPE, how much per head per capita we spend on each of our students. And we are fourth from the top in how we perform. So you have teachers and programs and systems that are delivering for you to a remarkable degree. And I just think that we all know that we put our money where our mouth is, and we value what we pay for. And so I think it's important that we just remember that those numbers exist. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll be back here on June 2nd. But that's what's happened in this process. I appreciate your listening to my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mary White, Summer Lane. First, I'd like to thank the board for keeping the 2 firefighters and the 1 police officer deferred to January 1st in the budget. Public safety matters most. If we are not safe, then it's just, that's the most important thing. I'd like to say that I support Len Fasano's suggestion, and so instead of just hearing it tonight and then we don't talk about it anymore and we don't do anything about it, is there a way we can take the suggestion and just say, okay, we want to form a committee that, is comprising of Democrats and Republicans and maybe people who are on boards and maybe members of the public, and both sides of the budget, people from the Board of Education, of course.
So it's a great suggestion, but I don't think everybody understands that this Board of Finance does not have direct control over the Board of Ed decisions. There's no mayor or first selectman in the state that can go to a Board of Education, nor can anybody here in the Board of Finance, and say, we want you to cut this, we want you to cut that, we want you to retool this, we want you to retool that. That is not something we have the authority to do. Our authority is only to give a new number, in this case, $1,757,000. I think the suggestion is good, and Len is a dear friend of mine. We go back a long way. He was co-president of the Senate in 2017. I played football against him for years, so I know what this man's about. He's a very smart individual. But this concept can certainly be created, but this Board of Finance has no authority to dictate to boards of eds that you have to change this curriculum, you have to do this structural change. All we can do is give a number, which is what we did tonight, Mary. So we can approach the Board of Ed. We can see if there can be collaboration between the Board of Finance and the Board of Education. They have their own finance committee in the Board of Ed. And this is what gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. We don't have the authority to go in and say, you change this and you change that. But I like the suggestion, and we'll see. We'll talk, Rich and I will talk to the superintendent and see if they're willing to collaborate on that concept. If they say no, there may not be anything we can do.
Okay, yes. So I think I would hope that they would be open to, just either on their own or through this a newly formed committee to really analyze every single program that they have and really see, if you have, I don't know, a particular language that is, maybe there's only 10 students or 5 students that are participating in it. Is it really something that's benefiting, the majority of the students? So, I'm just hoping they would be willing to just talk, but I understand we cannot tell them what to do. I absolutely understand that. Okay, so I wanted to just do a little recap. So the budget and if I get any of these numbers wrong, please correct me. So the budget represents 4.53% increase on both sides of the budget. Okay, and then the proposed mill rate increase is 1.1 mills, and the original proposed mill rate increase was 1.73. So if you subtract the two, there is a reduction of 0.63 mils, so that is more than half a mil rate increase that has been reduced. Next, I'd like to ask, could I get a copy of the declinations? Okay, let's see. So I just wanted to highlight, I know you've said it several times, Mike, of the $13.5 million that will have to be borrowed if the budget fails a second time. I just don't think it's something that is a path that we want to go on. And lastly, the proposed mill rate increase of 1.1, it's better. I'm hoping people think it's doable. We will be in support of this budget, and we hope people come out and vote in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else?
Jenny Caldwell, 69 Kimberly Circle. Prior to the vote, there was a lot of conversation about how the residents of their town are the ones who are going to have input into whether the budget whether the budget passes or not, and what would happen with this budget. And unfortunately, because this happened so quickly, I know there were many people who sent emails to the Board of Finance that many of you haven't seen. So, the idea of understanding which Diane has asked for several times, to have people give input about why it is they voted no or what their priorities were. Unfortunately, for the emails that were sent, most of you didn't get to see them. So I think that's unfortunate. And I think it leads to assumptions being made that people flatly want just a complete cut. And I'm not going to speak for other people because everybody has a different opinion, but I just think it's really important for the Board of Finance to get feedback before just moving forward with a budget, with a new budget proposal. I will say I 100% agree with what Len Fasano said, that there needs to be a deep dive. And I don't think it's just the Board of Ed side, and you're 100% right. The Board of Ed needs to do their deep dive. That is one of my issues that I have with the current Board of Ed. I don't think that they have done a deep dive. And I served on the Board of Ed for years. Our increases were our requests for increases were significantly less, and we were bringing back those special ed programs at the time. We were able to analyze, this is the cost of a program, this is how much we save, and to look at both of those things at the same time when we were looking at what our budget requests were. So I would like to see some of that information happening at the Board of Ed and being shown to the public, because I think that's how they get support. I also think that deep dive needs to happen on our town side of the budget. I have, as Kim asked about before, I've brought up this idea of, one size fits all services, and being told that if you pay your taxes, then you have the services, then everyone gets the services. The fact is, we're not all getting the services we want. I heard there was some kind of cut to the library. I don't support that. I don't know exactly what it is because I don't have the declination page, but I heard something about the library budget. I don't know if that's on there. There's not?
Painting.
That was the capital. So it's not, there's nothing coming out of the operational budget. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Because we don't have the declination page, I couldn't tell. And, in terms of safety for the fire, having a well-funded fire department, that always has been obviously an issue that I brought up multiple times. And it doesn't mean necessarily cutting leaf pickup, but I know a couple of years ago there was the idea of having people bag their leaves and put it on the street and saving money that way. That might be an option. I mean, there are a lot of different things to look at, but again, it's sort of taking a deep dive into where are we spending our money and how can we plan and budget differently. So I don't know where, until I see the numbers, how I feel about the next time around, but I agree with Len Fasano. I think the deep dive needs to happen on both sides. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. All right, don't see any hands. Anyone else? Please come up, yes, go ahead.
Maura DeMarco, Wayland Street. I want to thank the board for taking the first step in the right direction. It was a mandate, 60%, and they want the dollar amounts to come down. I think it's still, I mean, I'm okay with the 4.5, but I know a lot of people want just cost of living. And there's two cost of livings that you can use. You can use the 2.0 or the 3.6, which would make it even a bigger cut. And everybody I've spoken to is upset with the Board of Ed, especially the way that they're behaving online. Don't tell us that we're boomers, we're boomers, why don't we like kids? Why do we hate kids? Somebody on the Board of Ed is actually made a threat that if this budget does not go through, don't expect us to just sit back and take it all. I mean, just the comments online too. So I appreciate you taking this. It is your job. You're the boss. We're told that. You started out asking for a 5% increase from them, correct? Somewhere in the fives?
5.35, yep.
That's what you wanted from them. And look what they did. Okay? We have you back. We're all tired of it. They need to start respecting you. I was upset because I thought you were giving in to them. You need to put your foot down. You are the boss of the town. Tell them how to behave. This is what we can afford. I like the old Mike. I was going to bring in a picture where you were fighting for us. You were going to put through budgets that we can afford. Forget it. They're not respecting you. They're not respecting us. And they're out of control. And you need to put your foot down. You start putting your foot down, there's a lot of people that will start, they'll have your backs, Mike. They will have your backs. The 4%, I'm a lot happier with. 3.6. I came up here last week, and I know a lot of people in the audience keep telling us there's nothing we can do because of their contract. Their contract. Well, somewhere along the line, we got to review that contract. I didn't bring it again because I didn't know I was going to be talking about this subject. I have an analysis where the teachers, and I'm not so mad at the teachers, but their contract is supposed to be average 4% a year. Okay? Then I got fact-checked, and somebody wants to tell me that it's only 1% or 2%, but now they're still going to get 4.5%, and I have a feeling they're the ones who are going to come out and vote against this now. And if it is, they're going to be the reason why you might have to borrow money. And they will hear from us. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Frederick Rodriguez. I live at 27 Westview Road. I used to be the vice chair of the Democratic Party. If you want change, they have a caucus every other year, and that's where you can create change. The message from the voters wasn't that North Haven rejected education, public safety, or responsibility to public services. The message was that the proposed cost trajectory moved too fast, too far, without sufficient evidence of a redesign or restructure to support it. These numbers may reflect, the numbers appeared in the budget, may reflect a real pressure, but the real pressure doesn't eliminate responsibility, and particularly the worker compensation found in the Board of Education's budget of almost 238%. A 238% in workers' compensation should trigger a management review, not just a fund request. What is driving that claim? What is driving the claims? What prevention steps are we taking? What work to return procedures exist? What assumptions are built into the insurance model before taxpayers are asked to absorb the full increase? The Board of Education should show what has changed operationally before asking for that request. This is the moment to move for both the town and the Board of Education from inherited spending to intentional design spending. North Haven should review its administrative structure, just like Glenn Fasano said, its staffing ratios, its human resource functions, its transportation, its contract services, its program overlaps, and whether every dollar is aligned with strengthening the town and the choice of education for our students. I have two students in the public education, one in middle school and one in elementary school, and I'm advocating for this. At the same time, I urge the town, as they did, to preserve the fire. It is very important that the number of risks within fire have increased over the last decade. I wrote a more extensive letter and I sent it to the board outlining those risks. It doesn't save to continue to not grant those positions when you're paying out the risk in other forms, such as overtime or slow response time. And I believe that historically the fire department has not always been funded to match the town's current need. North Haven now faces more medical calls, traffic risk, aging residents, commercial exposures, as we saw that when Amazon moved in, severe weather events, and mutual aid demands. Cutting fire capacity may look like a savings on paper, as I just said, but the town thinks that it could pay for it later in overtime, slow responses, and higher risk, but this is not true. The last thing I want to say is that fire, as a remark that Nancy made, should stop be running sort of like as a service for fee. That service for fee model of collecting a fee for whatever work they do clearly does not work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, anyone else like to speak this evening? All right, I'm not seeing any hands.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say
Go right
something
ahead.
if I could.
Yep.
So in addition to the people that spoke this evening, we also received, excuse me, several emails from people making many of the same points that Mr. Fasano made, asking for an overview or an evaluation of our entire financial system, not just focusing just on the Board of Ed, but the entire town, in order to really be able to define our path forward. I know this is something that Mr. Frieda and Mr. Monaco and the rest of his staff work on a daily basis, but I think this is something that really could involve the entire community in terms of defining a path forward. Many of the structures that we have in place are legacy structures, and I think that there are opportunities to think creatively and come up with creative ideas for reorganization, perhaps allowing for the state government to also be able to provide us with some assistance, for example, in fire coverage on our highways that go through North Haven, just as an example. But I think a lot of people are asking the very same question: what will be different next year when we have to start building the next year's budget? If we utilize this exact same process, again, you can't get blood from a stone. So I think it's really important that we start now and start really thinking about, are we structured appropriately? Are we paying fairly? Are we staffing wisely? Are we controlling all of those expenditures like overtime? But even at a much bigger level, are we really providing the services that really meet the demands of this particular community. And I think that really requires an overhaul, and I think that's really what is being asked for by many people who have written us letters. I know that there are a lot of people out there that are going to be very concerned about this proposed $1.7 million reduction to the Board of Ed budget. But I'd like to provide a little bit more detail to a statistic that Chairman Donnie actually had referenced in a previous meeting. And here's the point. In the last 2 budget cycles, the Board of Education and the superintendent had requested, as part of their budget ask, the addition of 4 new positions, 2 each year, a school psychologist, as well as a special ed teacher in 24-25, as well as a speech pathologist and a special ed teacher at North Haven High School in the current year, 25-26. Ultimately, those budgets were approved, as we know, and so those positions were funded. But in those same 2 years, the Board of Education actually increased their total number of new positions by 30, not 4, but 30 positions. So I'm not in any way questioning whether the superintendent has the authority to do that. He most certainly has the authority to create new positions and fill them as he sees fit. However, the real question is, where did that money come from? If you do the math and you say, okay, that's an extra 26 positions, let's say it's $50,000 apiece. Some will be higher, some will be lower, but let's say on average $50,000 apiece, that's about $1.3 million. So I guess the question is, again, where did that money come from? And one of the theories, at least, and again, we don't really know here on this Board of Finance, is the idea of vacancy savings. That is, somebody retires at the peak of their salary and they're replaced by someone at a much lower salary, or that position is not replaced, but it is nonetheless budgeted. And of course, that represents a significant savings. Now, in this current fiscal year, that's 25-26, since July 1st, there have been 38 total resignations or retirements among Board of Ed employees. They include 2 administrators, 19 teachers, 1 district coordinator, 1 IT supervisor, 9 non-certified positions, 2 staff, 1 athletic coach, 1 custodian, 1 building and ground staff, and 1 security guard. Now, in fairness, we have to carve out 10 of those positions, because 1, for example, was an administrator who retired back in the beginning of the year.
It's public comment. I know you've done a lot of work here, and we've heard a lot of this before, but also, honestly, there's no one from the Board of Ed here who probably might want to counter some. I'm not saying, by the way, some of the things you're mentioning I may agree with, but we don't have anyone from the Board of Ed here to counter those points either. So.
Well, again, I took all of this information directly from the Board of Ed meeting minutes, and I can provide anyone with the documentation for each and every month, the numbers of
I recognize that
resignations.
because you presented
So
some of the data before, but I also know
I
that
presented it to this board, but not to the people.
Well, you said it in the meeting, and truthfully, some of the Board of Ed people were upset.
Well, I also presented it to the president of the teachers union, and she agreed with all of the numbers. So again, the point is, more positions were filled than were budgeted.
Well, I don't
and
disagree with you there.
And I know you have referenced that particular statistic. So I do believe that there are some reductions that can be made, and still the Board of Ed should be able to retain their teachers.
All right, I think Mr. Frieda wants to make one final comment just to wrap this up.
So I'm going to speak on the town side, and I don't know if people realize it, but we've been in a deep dive for the last 4 years here in town. You know, I've spearheaded a shared services agreement with the Council of Governments. We have we have some of our employees that are there. We're looking at things and how can we do aggregate purchasing on vehicles, fire trucks, how we can consolidate paving so that we can compress the cost of paving that's gone from $200,000 to $330,000 a mile by paving at the same time with other municipalities. We've taken out $700,000 from a fully insured workman's compensation program out of the town years ago. Now because of the utilization rates that are increasing, now we're looking to a fully workman's compensation model on the town side to minimize the costs. We've done a lot here. Vacancies, we don't fill vacancies. We've gone 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months to help save dollars. That's how come we come in under budget on expenses. I've worked with the governor's office on shared services. So we're doing a lot on the town side. We still have a lot to go. We know that there's a way to consolidate certain dispatch centers, potentially. That's been a problem. We had some pushback on that. In every area of this government, on the town side, this is what we do. Rich and Ingrid are good examples working with me. We're looking at how we can save money. And I want to just go back to what I said 4 times tonight. Why do you think we're coming in under budget every year? Because we've done the deep dive on the expense side. We can't control the revenues, as we talked about here before. We're constantly looking at the model of the expenses. We have consolidated positions down through the years. I don't want anyone here to think that we don't do deep dives. We're doing regular deep dives, and we've done it for the past several years. What do you think we did on health insurance? Why do you think we saved hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s up until this point, now that the utilization rates have gone high? Do you know why? I bet no one here knows why. I'm going to tell you why. We went self-insured. We entered into an alliance with other municipalities and ACEs. We compressed the administrative costs for Anthem significantly. We saved $175,000 for state taxes by going self-insured, plus the compression of the administrative fees, because we now have an aggregate purchasing coalition with other entities as part of this. So we can do these things on the town side. We've done these things on the town side. And even the governor himself asked me one day in Hartford, how can we engage in more shared services on boards of eds across the state? Well, all we can do here is what we're doing on the town side. That's where our authority is, and that's what we've been doing.
Please come up, yes.
Mike, I just want to make it quite clear. I don't think too many people are that upset on the town side, okay? That's not the problem. And if somebody needs to be really told what the problem is, everybody knows what the problem is. It's creepy. We have no control over our Board of Ed. They tell me I hate children. I'm a selfish boomer, but they have to but they need my money to exist. And then they have no transparency. The fireman was a big issue. I don't think I'm totally that upset that the cars and their lights are gone. That's okay, that's a good trade-off. But it wasn't the town side that was the real big problem. It was the Board of Ed. And you know it, and everybody in this room knows it. We're tired of it, and that's it. Relax with the town side, okay?
All right. Appreciate all the comments from everyone. We hope to see you here at the budget town meeting on June 6th, correct? June 2nd. Motion to adjourn, please. Second? I think we heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.